Hello everybody and welcome back to this tutorial, and in this example let us see a simple math example. So if you're good in geometry, you will know how to calculate the area of a circle. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a simple program that will calculate that, and then once we actually create it and see that it works, we're going to implement a function for a specific part of that program. Now don't worry, this is not a large program, this will be a rather simple example. So we can do something like that. So let me just open up my idle. We're going to actually create it in the normal shell itself. So let me just find, okay, so new file. Right here, we are going to code our simple program. So one thing that I didn't show you before is that in order to create an actual comment, you need to use hashtag. Now what comments are is basically if you have a print statement, and you are printing something right here, so print hello, and if you add a hash after it, you can type anything you want afterwards, and that part of the code will not be executed, or basically anything. It doesn't have to be code, so you can just type here, this function prints hello, and you can run this, and this will not be executed by the program itself. So let me just save this, desktop, Python programs, circle area, .py, because that is going to be our actual final project, and you can see it prints hello. It doesn't actually give us an error because we have a normal sentence right here. That is because it is actually behind an actual hash. You can type here anything you want, it will still work. Basically this is used as a comment, just so you can write something that you don't understand. You can just write next to it what it does, so later on, once you actually visit the program code once again, you don't really have to take your time to remember what certain parts of program do. You can just read a comment next to it and specifically know right away what that certain part of code does. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. We can just, or we can actually use it in this program. So let us type hash at the beginning and let us call it Python program calculate area of circle. So this is going to be our reminder what our program is doing, basically right here. Let us think about it. So we know that we actually need to take an input of the radius of the circle itself. So we will prompt the user to actually specify the radius of the circle itself. Then we will check whether the radius is actually equal to something. So we can actually do this in a while true loop. So if the radius will be equal to x, then we will close the program. So let me just show you right here. First of all, we are going to enter a while true loop. Why? Because we are actually going to prompt the user forever for actually entering radius and then specify, and then we'll print out the actual area of the circle. But if, for example, the user specifies x or any other number or basically anything as a value, we will then break out of the loop. So let me just check out right here. So radius equals input, and right here let us just use something like this. So enter radius of circle. Okay, right here we know that the radius of the circle is p times radius square. So, or pardon me, the area of the circle is radius square times p. And then after we actually input or prompt the user for the radius, we store it in the radius variable. Okay, and then we will check if radius is equal to x. Now the reason why we are checking whether it is equal to x, because this will be a command that the user will specify once they actually want to close this while true loop and break out of it. So let us just print right at the beginning to the user, specify x to close the program. Okay, so now the user knows what they need to specify if they want to actually exit out of the program. We can simply just break out of the loop right here, because we're in a while true loop. If we break out of the loop, we're actually going to close the program because we are not really going to have any other code outside of the while true loop. except for this print statement at the beginning. Okay, so first of all, we know that the red will actually store a string, whatever the actual user inputs. So if they input an X, it will be a string, as we saw right here. If they input an actual radius, for example, a number 2.7, it will still be a string. So in the actual else statement, first thing we need to do is we need to convert the value to the float or integer value. Now, since the user can actually specify a decimal and not just the entire number, we need to convert it to the float and not to the integer. So we'll create a variable, radius will be equal to float value from the red variable that we prompted to the user. And right here, once we do that, right now we can actually calculate the circle or the area of the circle. So area variable will be equal to 3 times 14 times radius times radius. Simple as that. So this is the actual formula for the area circle. And then we can print the actual area. So we can print at the end right here. Let me just show you. So the area of the circle is, and then when we can concat a string from the actual area and print it to the screen. Okay, so simple as that. We created a simple program. It still doesn't have any function. Let us right now just try to test it. So we run it. Enter radius of the circle, 3. The area of the circle is this one. Okay. Enter radius of the circle, 3.5, or let's go 3.54. We can see now the area of the circle is this. And if we want to close the program, we specify X and it will exit the program successfully. So our program works. Right now, let us see where we can actually implement an actual function. Now, by looking at this, we can actually store all of this in an actual function. So let us just copy this, then delete this, and at the beginning of the program, we will paste this right here. And we will store it in a function called calculate radius. It will take an input of the actual radius itself. Let me just think whether this is correctly specified. So calculate radius, then we check whether the radius is X. We will break out if it is, then we will convert it to the float value. If it is not, calculate the area and print the area. All we are left to do is simply just call the function right here. So calculate underscore radius with the red or RAD variable right here. So right now, if we save this and run it once again, break outside of the loop. Okay, yeah, we can't really break outside of the loop, but we can actually exit. So we use the exit function to close the actual program. So right now, let me just go and save it and run it once again. Enter radius of the circle, 3, 2, 1, X. The program is still running. Do you want to kill it? Okay. Yeah, this is not an actual good way to kill, so we will actually need to fix something right here. We can do something like this. So first of all, we will not have this in the program itself. Let me just go right here, tab everything one time back. This will be our function, but before we go into that function, we will check if red equals to actual X, then we will break out of the loop. If it doesn't, then it will skip this part right here and it will go straight to the calculate radius. Okay, so let us save this and run the program right here. Enter radius circle, 3, 4, 5, X, and then it closes the actual program. So it works correctly. Now what we did right here, in case you are actually confused, basically our calculate radius function will only calculate it once we actually specify the integer value or the float value. Before we actually go to that function, we need to check out whether the user specified X string as the actual value of the thread, meaning that they actually want to close the program. If they did, then we will break out of the loop, closing the program. If they didn't, then we will go into the calculate radius function, which will actually calculate the radius itself. And right now you can actually call this function wherever you want in your program. You don't have to calculate this every time. You can just call this function onto the specific value of a specified, or basically of a specified radius. So that would be about it for this tutorial. We're going to continue with our example in the next tutorial. So hope you enjoyed this lecture, and I hope I see you in the next one. Bye.